their script from yesterday?
Oh wait, I do have a script from yesterday.
Or whatever you got started on?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, so if you have that, along with the HDF file you were working with, jump into that folder. Yeah?
I have a question about that. I'm trying to extract the AOD 550.
Okay.
And I put the input to everything. And it says the first input can't be greater than 1. And I spent last night trying to figure it out. Like I looked at the dimensions of it. And it says 3, but it's not giving me anything more.
Okay, I'll check it out in a bit. So what I'd like you to do is there's 2 things. One thing, for a few minutes, I want you to take another crack at that code that we started yesterday. Basically, I asked you to be able to read this HDF file, pull out the longitude, latitude, and the corrected optical depth, right? For wavelength 550 nanometers. Now, before you actually dive into that, at the same time, go to your Google Drive. And I want you to start downloading this folder, which might take some time to download for today's session. It has the session number and then the date, I believe. Should be there.
Session 8.
Yes, that's session 8. Download that whole folder. So, the whole folder, right click it and download. Alright? Because we'll need it for later. The whole folder. Okay? That's going to take a while to download. Yeah. Okay? So you guys can work together on this. You don't have to be all quiet about it, but I want you to take another crack at finishing off this script, and then we'll go over it. And then I could also go over the big picture of this project, because this is just like step 1, right? Reading the data.
Step 1. Yes, it is.
It's actually not that bad once you do it. Yeah. So make sure you initiate the download, and once it starts, don't wait for it. Just go back to your code and start working on the code in Matlab for reading longitude, latitude, and AOD 550. And processing it, remember? And I'll give you 10 minutes to give it a try. Okay? We'll see how far you got.
Yeah, there's the word right here.
And then do it still.
Yeah. But I want to keep it on my computer. Well, what about what I have already?
Save it, and then copy your flash drive and you open it here.
I think we're okay.
The one only one.
pull out the project file? Anybody pull out the project file? You're all over the place. Actually, it sounds like I'm with everyone.
Oh, you haven't either? I thought you were asking because you didn't.
I was done.
Well, then it just gives you the file name.
Okay, let's see what you have here.
So I pull this up. It says. I read this.
No, I'm just,
I have this here file. Yeah. And I tried pulling out the Unity 550.
File name, but it's just a file name. So type in just file name, let's see what file name is. Just the name. You're asking to pull out data from a name. You didn't actually read the file, you just submitted the file.
Okay, session 6.
No, I mean, it can be an image, but yeah, isn't it stored as an HDF?
We have longitude data and we have latitude data. Everything on this. I'll read that.
What the result will be, the indices that match them. Yeah, but you shouldn't. There shouldn't be anything outside. The only thing, they say there's a fill value. You could simply use the find function to find that fill value, if any exists. Try that, and then see what the result is. If there are none, you'll get an empty matrix as a result of your indices.
yeah,
First one, lab data, run that.
I don't know if it's me one day.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Or you can want
File in your folder. Take note, everybody, if you didn't put the HDF file in the current folder that you're working on, you'll get an error. Matlab has to know where the file is, and it's only going to look in the current folder unless you tell it otherwise. Did I see a hand go up?
Yeah. This new full, this one you need to download it.
You download the session 8. It said, wait, go back.
It's in session 7.
Yeah, you got it. Okay, good. Just keep it. It's still downloading, so don't worry about it. I'll just tell you this. Once we finish this step, you're going to need to have the code be able to reach into that folder.
Because I use it my USB here, but I want to get rid of all these stuff because yesterday you were trying to download something on here.
Yeah.
Now it's when I put something here, it's not easy.
So why don't you take the file that you need from there, or the files you need from there, put them in another folder, and outside of Matlab, and then inside of Matlab, navigate to that folder. That's all you got to do. Just move the files to a folder you want. It could be a folder on your desktop, My Matlab, right?
And I'm moving here.
So outside of Mat, so this folder tells you where you are. You're in Users, Abdurrahman, Downloads. So go to the Downloads folder outside, like maybe in a binder. And you can move whatever files you need to move and put them in another folder that's preferable to you. And then after you do that,
Oh, so
tell
I
Matlab.
cannot delete from here.
You can, but if you really want to do it quickly, you could do it outside.
Because
It'll
I
be
have
easier.
too many stuff.
So you basically you don't want to be in the downloads folder. You want to choose another folder where your files will be, and then in MATLAB, you would just do this. If you, for example, if you moved your folders to the desktop, whatever the folder is, you click on it, you say open that folder, and that folder it'll show the contents of that folder. So that's what I'm saying. Choose the files you need, move them somewhere else.
So I save this one on my USB everything, meaning that I still have all this stuff here or not?
That's your downloads folder. I don't know what you have.
No, what I did is I saved this one on my USB and
Yeah.
I put it on this one.
So it should be there.
Which is this. I would just want to know if I still have all this kind of stuff here inside of it.
No. This is your local download folder.
Okay.
Whenever you
Because
download
now
anything.
I'm gonna work here.
Oh, okay. Whenever you download anything, usually anything you download from the internet will go straight to that folder.
Right.
Yeah. So it shouldn't be here.
Okay.
Unless you copied that whole folder to your drive, your USB drive, and put that here. I don't think. Okay. Well, you need to pull up the script from yesterday. And then you start.
I missed the part. I missed it yesterday. I wasn't here. So.
Oh, okay. Okay, don't worry. We're gonna go over. Don't worry.
Sorry.
But Nicole was here, right? So Nicole can tell you what you missed. At least where the files are. Session 7 has the file we're working from. Yeah.
So I need to download
It's a
it.
.hdf, and you would have to start a script. Nicole could, you work together on that. And then I'll talk to the whole class soon, okay? Yeah. What's the name, what's the real name? Scroll up. What's the actual name? That's the name I said. But this is actually, this includes 470, 550. You have to look at this metadata all of That's the name you have to enter. That's the name, that exact name. Instead of ALD 550. They didn't name it ALD 550.
And then upload it.
Yeah.
The village name of
New script.
Anything outside of that is inbound. Anything less than -100, anything greater than 5,000, you said that you're not enough.
Because I don't understand.
You're just saying between here and here are the good values. Between -100 and 5,000 are the good values. That's what it's saying. Yeah, exactly. No problem. Yeah. Wait, guys, I just want to take note of something. A lot of you think that that in the HDF file, it automatically just gives you AOD 550. It doesn't. It gives you AOD, but in 3 different wavelengths. 470, 550, and 660? Yeah. So you can't ask MATLAB when you're reading the HDF file, you can't specify AOD 550. It doesn't, there's no such name in the HDF file. You have to use the name of the data set inside the HDF file. Alright, and whoever missed it yesterday, I'll show you real quick how you would do that.
Now on the next view,
So, for whoever missed it because you went to the bathroom or something, here's like one way. It's not the only way. There are actually functions where you could read what the name of the data set is inside of the HDF file without having to do it manually. But we're doing it the simpler way. So, whoever missed it, again, you would have the HDF file in your current folder. You double click it. It takes me to this HDF import tool. And now if I expand these options here, you should do it on your screen if you missed this. You can see all the data set names that are included in the HDF file. Longitude, latitude, corrected optical depth. Now when I click on any of them, I can see the metadata. What's the metadata again?
The data that describes the data.
The data that describes the data, okay? I mean, it's much more metadata than this, but this is just a snapshot. So, you can see here, the name for the AOD data is not AOD 550, it's whatever they named it, which is corrected optical depth land. That just means like it was retrieved over land, the measurement, okay? And you can see that this data includes the AOD for 470, 550, and 660. It tells you right here. And it tells you the size of the matrix, 3 rows, 203 columns, 135 layers. So it's kind of like the reverse of what we did with the RGB image, remember? The layers were for red, green, blue. They kind of flipped it in a weird way, so now the rows are kind of like the layers were the RGB image. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And those 3 rows happen to correspond to these 3 different wavelengths. So measurements taken at that wavelength, at this wavelength, and at that, right? 3 different wavelengths. And I'm asking you to, first you read this whole thing, and then you pull out the one that corresponds to 550, or 0.55 microns, right? Which is easier than taking out all of them and having to assess all of them. We're just gonna choose one. Yeah?
Well, that's just me. But the things that we're using
We have it, so.
You do it, you can
this just read data from the data set.
Right. So in the data equals HDF, it tells you that in the variable you have the parallel, comma, and the data.
203 by 135, right?
So what is the data?
Right, so we had the idea of what the data
Yeah, but well,
set
that's the actual numbers, right? So you want rows, columns, and layers.
This is the file name, and then the longitude is the data set name.
Right. And the thing is that
Specify the second row, only the last column and the last name.
And then you hit enter.
so I haven't been a but if I take out
Have that dimension as longitude.
Alright, now I want to make sure here where
And how about you, Sharon?
you see it?
Do you have Matlab open?
You stop here, then you continue using this, or
this is a new
oh,
brand
this is
new.
okay.
Well, first of all, you need to have, like I said, you can
That's why I
have
have
a
a
PDF file, whatever file.
Oh,
you
so
need.
this is a completely new stuff.
Yeah.
Not
Is it designed in the right meta? Do you know where it is?
okay.
No.
Alright, I'm gonna click data and then copy this.
So, you down. Properly and down, that's right. So, you just navigate here. So run the first line. Okay.
And then this is the longitude.
Okay,
Right.
run this.
Right, and also you're missing the
Name your script.
and the single quotes.
I did it.
Oh,
for this one too?
It's important to know, so
Yeah, because this is
give it a Modus file reader or HDF file reader. Yes. You run any of this? Run it. If you do that, you're gonna get errors. You're not gonna know what you did. So try running it. Start from the top.
Oh, you didn't put the name of the function.
I mean, run one.
You didn't put the name of the function, it's the data equals.
file name.
Right. But the thing is that you see data equals HDF, we didn't put that. The name of the function.
That's gonna have to be.
It's a whole matrix. So that whole matrix is the map. We're looking at, remember the RGB?
Yeah.
It was a matrix of numbers, right? It's the same thing. But just because I asked, if you happen to want to be looking for 470, you can do that, right? But now you have to apply filters. So your filter should take care of, get rid of these, the negative filters. These are filters, this is where there's no data.
Yeah.
So it means
You're
nothing,
missing
there's no
that.
data. Some files might have you know, some will have something.
Yeah, ADS.
Alright, so you don't worry about what's in it right now.
Yeah, right.
Filtering that I
Now we
went
also.
over yesterday. Yeah. Remember, what is negative 999? What is it? What is it? What is it?
When we're doing like the 2 comma colon,
Yes, it's the
No,
filter. there's no data. If everything is that, then there's no data. If everything's in. No, you remove it all. Because you can't. What if there's one value that's
No,
good?
for the last two, they're going to use the same thing. So why you do this? Oh,
Guys, right now, don't worry about what the actual data is going to end up being. For all you know, they could all be blank values, right? They could all be fill values. The whole exercise is just being able to read the file, extract the data, and see if you can do that. Extract it and filter it. Now, okay, so whoever missed this yesterday, the way you filter it is you need, for example, the corrected optical depth. There are some parameters here, all right? It tells you the valid range of values. The valid range is between -100 and 5,000. Anything outside of that, get it out of there. Fill value. That's also like a point where there's no data. They tell you what the fill value is. So some of you are saying, why do I see all these -9999s? They're fill values. That means there's no data for those points. So you fill them with not a number, NaN. Remember NaN? Capital N, lowercase a, capital N. And then there's the scale factor. What do you do with the scale factor? You take all the data you have and multiply it with that scale factor. And the offset, add offset. In this case, it's 0. If it was non-zero, you would do something like this. You'd say scale factor. You don't need to worry about it in this case, but it would be scale factor times your data minus the offset. Okay, but don't worry, offset is 0. So all you have to do is multiply by the scale. That's how you would process it.
The remainder, right? Meaning after you pull out your fill values, you multiply by the scale.
Yeah. So take out all the invalid values, the fill value, anything outside of the valid range. And there's one more hidden step in there that you should do that I'm not telling you. But if you can at least make it this far, that's good enough. And then we'll go over it. Yes? Okay. How many people actually got it done? You filtered the data. Anybody?
I just want to
See.
say.
Broke down like those
So because remember here, each year you have to read the file and then read it inside.
So do you realize that the last long matrices correspond and they also correspond to the 203 and 135 correct dimensions of data. So you don't need to match it. But once you extract it and you have AOD and just 203 and 135, so all those pixels match exactly to the lag and noise to this.
Try to, because I can't finish, they're kind of something that says not enough arguments or.
Okay, let's start with the long dimension.
Corrected on this one.
You didn't read, did you read it?
Yeah, exactly.
You have to do the BGFA file name and then the name of the data set that corresponds to the optical data that I showed up there. What I said that they don't give them just the Wi-Fi, that they give all three.
My question is,
So you have to also do BGFA with that data
if you're
set.
from SQL, which is like a database software.
Okay, so if you do that, then take it from there.
Where this is SQL, the opera simple. It's SQL. Because I can just say select 0.55 from
Yeah, where?
That's why I like SQL, but we're using Matlab, we're not using SQL. So my question is, how do I extract that?
So the valid range is
So hold on, let's see what you have before we get to this next. We're see if they actually have the raw data. So I see data latitude, data longitude. You know, this is 6. should be the same. So you did something wrong. Okay, so you read the longitude, you read the latitude. Where did you read
It
it?
goes right, and I feel that someone was coming towards me. So what I did was I just moved to the left or to the right. I missed him, but then he came
Okay, you know what, let's do this. All right, everybody, who wants to figure this out right now with me? You ready to do that?
Yes.
You gonna pay attention?
Yes.
You gonna try hard?
Very
Okay,
hard.
then let's do it. So check it out. And I think a lot of you are making this same mistake. So I'll start from the top, okay? File name. Let's copy that file name. Most of you did this, if not all of you.
You don't need the .hdf. Okay, no.
Yeah, you did. All right, so I've got my file name. Then I want to say, I know I'm looking for longitude, right? So I'm just going to call it long, okay? You can call it whatever you want. I'm going to call it long, HDF read, file name, and what's the actual name of that data set name in the HDF file? It's longitude with a capital L. Okay, I think most people got that. Latitude, I'm going to call it lat, HDF read.
Nothing. Latitude.
Yep. Okay, most people got that. Here's where people fell off. They thought, all right, I've got the longitude, I've got the latitude, I'm going to pull out the AOD data from those. But you got to understand, what are these matrices here for latitude and longitude?
All three of them.
Let's look at our workspace, okay? I want you to be clear on this. Oh, I didn't run it yet. Let me run it. Okay. Let's look at latitude. Now, if you open latitude from your workspace, you'll see it more clearly on your screen. What are we looking at here? Remember the RGB image? It was essentially just the whole table of numbers like this?
Yeah.
Okay. So look at it on your screen. When you expand this, this is latitude, right? So what is latitude? It's like a horizontal line, right?
These are the X values.
So that means, well, technically the Y, right?
Wait.
If this is X and this is Y, then the latitude is that way, the horizontal, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know it's, yeah.
The rows.
Anyway, what that means is that you should have this, in the first row, all the values should be the same. That makes sense, right? Because it's just a horizontal line, right? So this tells you the latitude at this row, they're all the same values. The next row, they're just replicated. Hey guys, can you mute your mic, whoever's on the remote session? Thanks. Yeah, so do you see that? That's what latitude is, just constant values across and it's replicated, okay? And the same thing with longitude. What do you expect to see with longitude?
It should be that.
Which way does longitude go?
This way.
Vertically, right?
Yeah.
And we see the same, well, there'll be some minute differences because the satellite is not actually going, you know, it's not directly lined up with longitude and latitude. It's like going at an angle, right? But they're relatively constant across, you know, for column 1 and column 2,
They're very
column
close. Yeah.
right? So you're looking at a grid here. That's all this is. You can't get AOD from this. These are the coordinates at every pixel. It's basically saying, hey, at this pixel in row 1, column 6, here's the longitude. And what's the latitude? I go to my latitude matrix in the same position, and that's the latitude. It's just showing me the coordinates for every pixel. The latitude and longitude coordinates, which I would need later if I want to map the AOD data. Now, let's go to actually getting the AOD data.
So do we have to read that correctly, optical depth?
So check it out. Let's just call it AOD temp, HDF read, same thing, reading from the same file, but there's a dataset name for this. And what is it? It tells us right here, corrected optimal depth land. I could just copy that and put it in. Paste it here. Okay? Now I read this. I look at my workspace and I can see the dimensions. It's 3 by 203 by 135. Let me see who's making this all. Hey, Astrid. Astrid. Hey, Astrid.
I'll take care
Hey, Astrid. Can you mute your mic, please? Astrid, and I think it's just Astrid. She had me on mute. Can I get her out? Look, Astrid's oh. Okay. Hold on, let me mute this. Alright. Turn off that speaker. You're out of here. Alright.
Forget about it. Forget about it.
So where were we? I'm sorry, I got distracted. AOD, right? Yeah. So, I see the dimensions is 3 by 203 by 135. So I know my latitude and my longitude are 203 by 135. So I know those dimensions correspond to the spatial area. And I know the 3 there, the 3 rows, they each correspond to the AOD values at those wavelengths, those 3 different wavelengths, right? Yeah. So, how you doing? Say something. So, let's say I want my AOD 550. Which,
Second.
I'm going to call it temp, equals AOD temp, the previous line I just wrote. And I'm going to pull out which row? 2. Row 2.
2, comma,
All the columns, all the layers. Because all the columns and the layers in this matrix correspond to the spatial area. It's a map, essentially. It's a tile. There. I have that. And I'm going to run that. But something strange happens. Look at, run this line.
Yeah.
And tell me what the dimensions now are for AOD 550 temp.
All 999s.
No, those are the values.
It's 1 by 203 by 135.
It's 1 row by 203 by 135, but if we want to eventually map the data, we want it to be the same dimensions as the latitude and longitude, which is only just 203 by 135, not 1 by 203 by 130. Do you see that?
Sure.
Who doesn't see it yet on your own screen? I need you to have it on your own screen, because now I'm going to use a function that you don't know, and I want you to see what it actually does. So there's an easy way around this. I want to essentially squeeze this matrix. It's a 1 by 203 by 135. I'm going to squeeze it and get rid of that 1 row, that dimension there. I want to squeeze it into a 2D, and I won't lose any information. How do I do that? Well, there happens to be a squeeze function, and it's called squeeze. And I put that whole bit that I wrote there inside the squeeze function. Okay? You see how I did that? I just put what I wrote here as the input for the squeeze function. Make sure you have your parentheses around it. Run that. Now let's look at the workspace. What are the dimensions now? What we need them to be.
203 by 135.
203, so it's squeezed out that 1, right? Now our dimensions match the latitude and longitude. Okay, take a second to put that down. Yeah, now run that. Let's see what you get. Well, if you didn't run this, run that, then run that. No, just those 2 lines. Or wait, that's okay. See how it's 1 by 203? So I use this function called squeeze. This as an input. See how I did it? Look. Everyone, do this. Apply that squeeze function to the part we pulled out. That'll transfer this AOD 550, which is originally a 1 by 203 by 135. It'll squeeze it out so that all you're left with is this. And that'll be squeezed out. Okay? Apply that squeeze function. That question?
Does that only apply when one of the dimensions is just 1?
Oh, I could just squeeze that
Well, we could. I'm not sure. I could try it right now. Let's see. So the question is, does that only apply when the dimension is just 1? So let's look at let's look at the help. Returns an array B with the same elements as A, but with all the singleton dimensions removed. Singleton. Yeah. So but we could try to test it. We know that this original AOD temp is the one that I read from the HDF file. It was a 3 by 203. So you could just try it.
I try it again.
And see what you get. Okay? And what do you get?
It doesn't squeeze it.
It doesn't squeeze it. Okay? So in other words, it squeezes out the dimension that is like, that's a value of 1.
Is this what
If it had 1 layer,
Value of 1 or like 1
I think value. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like, for example, remember when we do the RGB image, and you have all the rows, all the columns, and then layer 1, if you squeeze that, it would just get rid of the 1, and you just have the rows and the columns. It squeezes out the 1. Okay? Everyone gets why we did that, right? Okay. So now what do we do? Who got to the next step? So let's start one step at a time. We'll look at the data fields again. And I can start with my valid range. Let's start with the valid range. So I know all my values need to be less than negative 100, or they have to be in between negative 100 and 5,000. So you could use the find function, and you could, what find will do is it will find the indices that correspond to what you're asking for. So let's start with the fill value. The fill value is what? Negative 9999.
This is the file.
Say AOD 550 equals double equal sign negative 999. Okay, I'm not going to set it equal to a variable name yet. I just want to see what I get. 4 nines? Yeah. Okay, I get all the indices that correspond to that. Oh yeah. Right? What's another way I can do this? If I automatically, see what this does? Is it gives me indices. Right? I get a bunch of indices, and then I plug that in to the matrix that I want to, call those values for. So the indices correspond to this AOD 550 temp, and I just put them in here. And now it's basically telling Matlab, hey, that whole list of positions of values that I gave you, I want you to take all those values, and what I want to do with them, let's say I want to set them equal to NaN. Okay? What would that do? Oh, wait a second. Let's do something else. One more. Here's the hidden step. Okay? Hidden step. What type is this? What type of data are all these? It says here integer 16, 16-bit integer.
other one is
Okay.
single.
And the other one is single. So what do we do? Let's do this right from the get-go. Convert it to type double. Okay? Usually when you use type double when you're doing any kind of computations. Okay? So I could do it in a separate line, or I could just do it in this. No, let me do a separate line. AOD 550 temp equals the same thing itself, or the double. Apply the double function, which will convert it to a type double. Okay? And I might as well go and do the same thing for latitude and longitude. So long equals double. Lat equals double. Again, this is just converting it to type double. Now some of you might be wondering, oh, what is type double? What does that mean? I mean, if we check it out,
Like a flow, right?
yeah. So double precision arrays, I mean, you have different types. You could have 16-bit, 8-bit, unsigned, signed. If you wanted to look more into that, I would look at the Matlab help documentation. I don't want to go off on a tangent, so let's just go back to what we need to do. All right, so convert everything to type double. Did that? And it's easy. All you do is you just use the double function. And whatever it is you read with the latitude, longitude, that's your input. And I do it for latitude, longitude, and the AOD. Make sense? Give me a chance to put that in. I'm going to run the whole thing myself again. And now, so notice in my workspace, this was latitude, longitude, or type single, right?
Yep.
And AOD 550 is a 16-bit integer. All right, so let me run this again. I'm going to clear those variables. Let's see what they are now. Now they're double. AOD 550 is type double, latitude is type double, so is longitude type double. Okay? All right. Now, I showed you one way to find, like, for example, this fill value, right? But there's another way we could do this. Okay, here's one way, right? I showed you this one way. I'm going to comment that out. Another way is I could call the matrix AOD 550 temp. And now, which indices do I want? I'll tell MATLAB wherever AOD 550 temp is equal to -9999. Now let me double check if that's the right fill value. I double check, I look, -9949, okay. All right.
So what does that mean?
And now I'm going to tell MATLAB, it basically does it in one line. What it does is it's saying, hey, for any of the values where this is true, where the value equals -9999, change those to nans.
So you, this is an alternative to doing the indices?
This is an alternative to doing this where I use the find function to find the indices.
Yeah.
So, okay. That's like a shorthand thing?
Yeah, I mean, it's just in one line, you can get it done.
Instead of doing it, removing it.
And I see they're almost all nans. Okay. Now,
That was a bad idea.
that's That's to remove the fill value. But did you notice something in this particular example we're working with? The fill value is actually, what's the valid range again? So is negative 9999 inside or outside the valid range? It's already outside. So technically, I could just write a line to remove any values outside of that range. And I don't even have to specify the values that equal the fill value, right? In this case.
So we don't need to do that I think in this case.
I mean, you could do it, it's not wrong, but you could even do it like this. AOD 550 temp, and find the ones that are, let's say, AOD 550 temp less than negative 100, or is it and or? Or greater than, what was the max value? 5,000. Okay? That gives us, that's going to specify any values outside of the valid range. And I'll set them equal to not a number, NaN. So you can see, if I just run this line, it would take care of the fill value already. So I'm going to comment that line out, where I showed you an alternative for removing a fill value. But it's good to keep in your notes, just so you can know all the different ways you can play with this. Can everyone see this clearly? McKinney, can you see it? Yeah? Okay. Any questions on that? Yeah.
So the last line would be convenient if you have like a positive and a negative fill value. If you ever had like, or just ranges outside. Yeah.
I suppose if the fill value happened to be within the valid range, then you'd want to explicitly.
Oh yeah.
Right. Okay. How many people need another second to get this down? Tell me now. Okay. Uno, dos, tres. Okay.
I want to just show you something.
Yeah. What? You want to show me something?
Where's that 5,000 number?
Mine stopped running from here. This is not.
What's the valid range?
Mine stopped running from here. I only got this one. So I did run this one.
Okay. I mean, you see.
It got stuck.
Okay. So you got file name. Let's start fresh. Let's have a clear all at the top. What does clear all do? It's going to clear all these guys. Okay. So where do you get your error? Oh, I see your problem. I see your problem. You're not going to get an error here. You didn't do anything wrong. Here you did.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to get an error.
Why? Let's see what the error message is. No data set found. To make sure the file name and data set name are correct. Is the file name correct? Yes. F name is right. But what about this? Yes, capital C, and what about the O?
Oh, and the D and the.
Just from a couple capital letters being off, you get an error. It has to match exactly.
So you just see and I will get capital.
And how do I know that? Double click this. Sorry, if you double click it, it'll open it again. Double click. Plus, click the plus sign. Plus data fields. Click on it. There's the name. You could just copy the name, copy paste, so you don't mess it up. All right, is everybody on board?
Yeah.
Who isn't yet? It's okay, let me know. All right, who's by the wall? Sharif, are you on board? Okay, let me get Sharif on board. Are you guys good over here? Okay. Okay, you're up to date? Okay. No data set found. Make sure the file name and the data set name are correct. That means you have a typo. Yeah, you had to put the exact data set name that's in here. Look at it take care of it. It doesn't match exactly. Is this exactly the same? Oh yeah, capital letters. How do you know that? It's all in reference to what created this file, how they did it. Guys, if you're when you call the dataset name, if you're getting an error and it says something like check the file name and the dataset name, that means check that the dataset name and the file name, because you probably left out a capital letter. A few of you have done this. So make sure you write it in exactly as it is in the HDF file. Okay, let's speed it up now. Okay. So I'm going to just put a comment to describe remove anything, and you should put the same kind of comments in your script. Remove anything outside the valid range given by the HDF file editing.
What if it's, when I change the size to double, it doesn't read it anymore?
You change the size to
I
double?
mean, we did double long.
Do you have a clear all at the top of your code and are you running the whole thing over again?
No.
Try that. Okay, so I got rid of the fill value. By doing that line, I kept everything within the valid range. So these two are done. What's next?
Multiply by the
Scale factor. Okay. So I'm going to write a comment so I know what I'm doing. Apply scale factor. To convert data to original values. Well, I'll put original values. Okay. So AOD 550. Now notice I'm using the same name and I'm writing over it. You don't have to do that. If it's going to confuse you, don't do it. You could give it a new name if you like. Okay, sure. AOD 550 final equals AOD 550 temp times the scale factor. Oh, I didn't define the scale factor. Yeah, okay. But note, remember I could also, at the top, I could ahead of time, I could say fill value equals -9999. I could say scale factor, I could do all that ahead. Why would I want to do that?
So you can change it later on.
So you could change it later on. Maybe it could be, yeah. So basically you could change it later on. And you don't have to go through the whole code and change numbers in the code. Or make a function, yeah. Okay, so do that. All right.
Yeah, I got man.
I got Nance.
Okay, so people have nans.
But I mean that all the data was just garbage. That's the secret.
Okay. Let me know when you finish doing that. But now that you saw it, see, when you break it down into steps, it's not so bad, right? And if you know how to call the values you want to remove, it's not so bad.
I realized what was the problem. You can't do double before you read the data.
Yeah, you should read the data and then apply double to the data that were read. Yeah. Otherwise, if you didn't read the data, you're applying double to nothing. Yeah. No. Oh, wait a second, you just reminded me. Now, what about for latitude and longitude?
They changed. It shows you like
Fill value?
Yeah, there are values for it, but are there any fill values or anything we need to do for latitude and longitude?
I don't think so.
They have different,
They don't have negative 999, so like the negative 999.
they do have a value range.
Okay.
It's different.
The negative 39, there's no negative. There's no value outside of it.
Okay, so what I would say is just apply the fill value filter to the latitude and longitude just to be safe. Maybe in this file there's no problem, but there could be some anomalous file that you take one day and it does have those fill values, and then you go to map it and it'll be like mapping to negative 999. You don't want that, right?
So what would we do?
So we do the same thing to the latitude and the longitude matrices now. We're just going to remove the fill values. Okay, or you could set the valid range.
And that doesn't matter where in the code you write it? Like, I mean, as long as you did it after you defined it?
As long as at the end of the day, everything is filtered. Right? So far, we didn't touch latitude and longitude. All we did was we read them, and we converted them to type double. So let's just do that, and we're pretty much done with this step. Okay? Now, okay, so to answer your question more clearly, Mohammed, yeah, I mean, in this case, since we're not doing anything with latitude or longitude yet, we could do it above these lines, as long as it's after we converted latitude and longitude to double. Okay, so here, I'll just do it here so you guys don't get mixed up. So lat, I want to take out all the lat values that equal negative, whatever it says.
3 nines.
3 nines. Okay. Yeah, so if I run this, probably I'll, oh, it shows everything, I think, and then, yeah. I think I could,
What else? Semicolon?
yeah, if I wanted to check if there were any, now that I did it, I could say, is nan lat, is it true that there are nan values there? False, false, false. If I wanted, there could be a 1 in there somewhere saying it's true, right? So I could do the sum of everything in that answer. Yeah, there are no nans. So there's nothing to fill in this case, but there might be other cases where you would. So be safe, we'll do that.
If you set it as a variable like indices, you just like display indices, or do you like some weird like set it 0 by 1?
Yeah. If you try to do the find function, for example, find to me all the indices where you have negative 999 for latitude, you would get a 0 by 1 result. You know, it's empty. Okay. What? Yeah. With those lines, yeah, anywhere you have it. In this case, we don't have that for latitude and longitude.
So when it says empty matrix, that means that when I did the find,
Yeah, that means there are no such indices that meet that little logical statement you put in. Okay, so everyone's clear on this, right? Sharif, we're good over there? Okay. I know you have the least best seat in the house because of the pillar, but yeah.
So to find out if there's any one you can see is the sum of lat.
No, don't do, I was just, because I did that comment, oh yeah, oh, you just wanted to see what I did. I said, so this, I didn't save it to a name, so I remember the most recent result, the answer right here. So I said sum and all the values as the columns. If I don't do that, it'll just give me the sum of each column. That tells me false. Notice, guys, if there's certain lines that I showed you how to do, but you don't want it in your main code, you can just, just write it in here, blah, 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 and then comment it, so that you can keep it. Okay?
I believe this is my number, but if you want the same, change it.
If you run the same,
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to be, in this case you'll be okay. Yeah, so if you have alternative ways, it's better to keep them commented and just pick one way. Because in some cases, yes, you might remove, or not in this case, but in other cases you could have it. Yeah. Oh, you want to see what that was? All right, everyone is curious about this is-nan thing.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to see, is it, are there any nans in my latitude and longitude? So I'll show you how I did that. Okay. Here. So this is after the fact. I said, hey, if there are any negative non values, set them equal to nan. So if I want to check if any of them are nan, I use the is-nan function. And then I can call that matrix. In this case, we're looking at, let's say, latitude. I called it lat. Yeah, anything inside lat, is it true that any of them are equal to nan? By saying equals 1, I'm asking, is it true that there's a nan? If I say equals 0, that means, is it false that it's a nan? Are they not nans? So if I do that, what the output will be? Will be a whole matrix of zeros. Why? Because it's saying, hey, for this value of latitude, it wasn't an nan. It's false. False, 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 false. But we're not machines, right? We're not going to scan through a whole table and identify one value that might be true. So a little neat, clever trick to do is just add up all the values in that matrix. And remember, if I use the sum function only, it'll give me the sum of only the columns.
You do them now?
Yeah, so for example, if I do this, sum of the answer, it gives me a whole row of zeros. So I could just say, do this again. So I mean, the way I taught you guys, I like it better for whether it's max or sum or min or whatever. I've been telling you, you say something like sum, and then let's say you have matrix A, and you want to get the total sum. You do it of all the values, right? Remember this? So another way to do this is if it's a two-dimensional matrix, just so you know some alternatives, you just apply another sum function to this. Sum of the sum. And if it was three-dimensional and you want the total sum, you'd add another sum to the outside. I think it's cleaner to just do the way I taught you. Which was this. Right? So just so you know, there are many ways to do this, not just the ways I'm showing you. Okay? All right. So now that we finished that, yes, yes. Yeah. Cumulative sum. Oh yeah, you could have. I mean, if it was all zeros, you would just get a 0. I mean, you would take the last result of cumulative sum. Yeah. Yeah.
Weird happens when I do the double changes the dimensions to like a 6 value like change.
What?
Changes all of the values to this.
Okay, let me see.
Alright, so let's say I'm not the street. Evaluate before I apply this
Okay, so now that what you guys just did was you took a satellite data file, you extracted the data, you processed it, you filtered it, and you mission accomplished. So now you have data, you actually retrieved some satellite data, and you did a good job on it. That's it. Now, yay! Now imagine your professor says, well, let me ask you this. What time was this data collected? Is it over a range of time? Is it a time series, this data?
It should be the metadata, right? Time. Take time.
Well, think about it. One satellite image is going to be, is it going to be over a range of time or just an instance in time? Close to an instance.
Do you measure the distance from the first starting longitude, latitude to the last?
Yeah. To be honest, I don't know the right answer to that. What I do know is that there's an acquisition time. So I don't know how they decide on the final acquisition, because I mean, if you're scanning, right, you're not scanning everything instantaneously. There must be some lag, right? But for this file, for example, for Modis files, actually, let's jump on Google. All right, Modis file name convention. This is how you find things out, okay? And I know you know that. It's called Google. No. I created it. Yeah, so I wish.
You wouldn't be here right now.
Yeah.
You'd be in college. You just would sit yourself.
So check it out, guys. Right? This gives us an example of a Modis file name. Naming conventions. So it tells you, all right, this is the product short name. So the data we're dealing with, it's actually it's a product. It's not like they put up some satellite and it instantaneously did all of that. Some people had to get this raw data that might not seem like anything to regular people and then convert it and use algorithms to translate it into something that makes sense, right? And what do we get at the end of the day? A product. And that's what we're working with right now. So this tells you the product short name. Ours is Mod 04. I don't want to bore you with that stuff. But let's see. Here, this gives you the Julian date of acquisition. So this is like the year that they took that picture. The day. Okay? All right, I don't like this example. So in our file, actually, you can see the acquisition time in the file name. Okay? It's too small for me to show. If you look on your screen, you can see this image is from 2016, January,
Go back to
at
what did you? Can you go back?
3:05 p.m.
Go back to the Chrome.
What?
Oh, you clicked the first one, the Mod 04.
The name of the file?
Yeah, it says it.
Yeah, so this is a slightly different convention though. This is telling you the tile, the horizontal and vertical. Yeah. But anyway, our file name is a little different. It has the year, the Julian day. Okay, everyone know what the Julian day is? It's like from 1 to 365, let's say. For a leap year, 1 to 366, right? Yeah. So what was I saying? Oh yeah, and then it shows you the hour and the minute, I believe, in our file name. In this example, it's like an alternative.
Where?
Where?
An alternative way.
Hour, it's here. Hour, minute, second, year, is hour, minute, second.
Where do you see it? Oh, that's data production. We don't want data production. We want data of acquisition, I would say. Okay? So in our file name, take a look at the file name.
Do you like copy paste this?
Here.
You just put that in there. Oh wow.
Oh, it's fine. Copy.
Thank you, Google.
Again, copy.
Yeah, okay. There it is. So that's our file name. Wait.
2016.
Did not match. Yeah. So acquisition date. 2016, Julian day 1. Hour 15, which is 3. That's all right. That's all right.
305. Quick answer. Wow. Wait, no.
So hour, minute, seconds. No, this is actually the collection. So all right. So there are different collection algorithms. Let's say for Modis. So there could be collection 5, which is like the older one, and then 5.1. It's like they changed something in their algorithm to update the product, so that at the end of the day they refined it for any errors. Because nothing's perfect, right? It's always like you're always improving things.
So they're doing like fill value and like removing.
Well, more than that.
It's like
So now, did all your folders finish downloading? The session 8? No?
Yeah.
Another half hour. Another half hour? Seriously?
He's on the school Wi-Fi.
No, it can't be.
Mine is done.
Yours is done. Alright, let it keep going. Let it keep going. Wait, is mine done?
It's staying the web.
Yes, mine is done, so I'll show you.
You should download it on the computer.
So check it out.
Try to do it now. It's gonna be a way faster.
It shows like the halfway mark. You see this little green? You see it? Like a little green right here.
See, that's why you should download it over there.
Now the reason it's taking so long, check it out, because I went to my old hard drive from when I was an undergrad, and my first project I had to do was like get all the Modis data for AOD over CCNY. So there's like, it ranges from the year 2000 to 2010, I think. Because that's 10 years, and it's like 606 files. Yeah. So now you're going to apply what you did. So if some professor said, hey, analyze these 606 files, you might get a little scared, right?
So we make it a function.
Now, yes, one option, we make what you just wrote today a function, and then you could run a for loop on that function.
For all 600.
For all 600. So you repeat that code, you run that code 606 times by making, applying a for loop to it. Hold on. Or you can apply the for loop and put all of that inside a function. There's a couple of ways, right?
Yeah, I was going to say that because what about the first 600? What if they wanted like not the first 600, but maybe like random samples?
Random samples.
Like 1 year.
Well, I mean, then I downloaded, those files and put them there. I mean, I don't know. That's a different question.
Yeah, it's kind of like
Yeah. Random sampler. That's a different story. Let's see if we can run through 600 files first. I mean, we don't have to do 600, but at the end of the day, here's our goal. We want to be able to take this data, over that 10-year span, and then compare it with AeroNet. What is AeroNet? Remember, they have those stations all over the world. So we're going to use that as our ground truth, right? So we compare the satellite AOD retrieval to the AeroNet AOD retrievals, and we see how they compare. And we'd hope that they match very well. Okay. So to do that, what do we need to do? First, you need to do what you did today. Run this code on each file. Now you want to save all the latitude, longitude, and AOD values every step of the way for each file. Right? And then what we want to do is match in time and location Modis readings with AeroNet readings. Again, we filtered the data. We processed the data for one file. We're just going to repeat that for all the files in the folder and save the results. Remember how we saved in a for loop? You have to put indexing. Remember what we did with the RGB image?
Yeah.
It's the same concept. You've done it already. Now let's see if you could actually apply it to some remote sensing data. Okay? So you do that, and now we have to match both location and time between the satellite data and the AeroNet data. The AeroNet data for CCNY, what's the location? Is it a whole bunch of locations? It's 1 point. One latitude, one longitude. The satellite data, how many points do we have?
Is that like area?
It's a whole area.
Yeah.
So you'd have to find the pixel in that whole matrix of values for the AOD and the latitude and longitude. You'd have to look at the latitude and longitude matrices and find the pixel that's closest to your coordinates. Yeah?
Okay.
You match the location. I'm just giving you the overview. I'm not expecting you to just do it right now. Don't worry. You should write it down though, so that you get it in your head. Now let me see if I have this
Are we going
ready.
to decompress?
Okay. So for those of you who don't, you haven't been able to download the whole folder yet, I have it here. Now, oh, by the way, that file that we analyzed, yes, some people said it, they're all nans. There's no data there. So there's a lesson in that. Sometimes there's a lesson in that. No, there is, because one time I said, all right, let me just download 100 files and compare it to AeroNet. I processed all the MODIS data, I matched the time and location, I did all this work, and I went to compare, nothing, a blank plot. I'm like, what? And then I looked, and they're all nans for MODIS in comparison to AeroNet, which actually had values.
Were you angry?
So there were. So then I said, all right, I'm going to download from 2000 to 2010. But usually, I mean, you want to cover as many years as you can. You know, longer time frame is better. You don't want just a little snapshot, otherwise you're not getting a good representation.
Okay.
Okay, so once your thing is downloaded, first let me show you this. I decided to throw in this little document. So some people might say, how do you know what's behind the data? You know, where do you find the metadata? So they have these documents called Algorithm Theoretical Basis Documents, ATPDs. And so regardless of whatever satellite data you work with, you should be able to find a document like this that like really gets into the details on how they take the data and use algorithms to process it. It's pretty complicated, but you can use it to find out little bits of information that you need to know, right? At the minimum, Okay, so I gave that document to you in case you're curious. And now, if I open up this folder, MODIS_CCNY, I have this whole folder of HDF files. Okay? Who still needs their folder downloaded? Who's waiting? Bikini? Don't you have your own computer?
Yeah.
Wait, desktop. Use the desktop. Wait, who used the desktop to download the data? Pretty much everyone. And how quick was it?
Very quick.
Pretty quick because you connected to the Ethernet. Yeah, do it on the desktop.
The Wi-Fi is not.
Anyone who tried it from Wi-Fi, pretty much, it's gonna be a lot slower.
Yeah.
Yours is fast. All right, he's got a special computer. Everyone, he's got the. So I want to give you a chance to do that. Otherwise, if I jump ahead and do this right now, you might not catch it. But essentially, what we need to be able to do is one, take our code and maybe make it into a function. Remember, what do you ask yourself when you're making your transforming your code into a function? You just ask yourself, all right, what are all the outputs I want to get from this at the end of the day? And what are all the necessary inputs that need to go into the function?
So let's say, for example, you said, like, for example, 600 files. So in the for, like, remember when we were doing from X, from 1 to 2000, would it be like for like file in the folder of files from file this to file that?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
So the question is, if we ran a for loop for this purpose, would we be running the for loop through the number of files? And the answer is yes.
Is it the index of the file or is it the name?
We're gonna get to that.
Okay.
Okay? Okay, so most of you do have the data, right?
Yes.
Okay, so check it out. I'll tell you what. What I want you to do before I get into this is take your code that you have now for processing a Modis file, HDF file. Paying attention, guys? Yeah. Take the code that you have. Save as a new file. I don't want you to ruin your good code if it works. Okay, do that right now. And then, yeah, and then make it a function. And just to speed up the process, right away I can tell you one input is going to be the file name. In fact, I think that's the only input. Unless you want to get fancy and allow the user to put in a different fill value. I don't think you want to do that in this case. You know, you could do that in the future if you were making a file reader for different products. Yeah?
What if they wanted a different wavelength?
Sure, if they want a different wavelength. For now, for the sake of brevity, let's just assume we want a function to do exactly what we did here. Let's not play around with modifying because then you might get confused. I mean, you can do it on your own time. But for this, I recommend just sticking to this. Transform it into a
And
function.
then we're gonna open a new file and then like copy this and paste there and transform it.
Yeah, so what I would do is this. So I first make sure you save this. Save as Modis file reader script. Okay? Now, I'm going to save as to start something new. And I'll just call it, I don't know, Modis files reader. Okay? And now I can do whatever I want to this file because I still have my script saved from before. So I have two copies that are identical right now. Change the second one.
Did you call the first one?
You could call it whatever makes sense to you. I called it Modis file reader script.
But it's going to be saved as a function.
Well, the first one we did is just the script.
No, the new one.
The new one, we're going to try to make into a function. Yeah. 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 Where did we go then?
It says we do 1 gig speed. Yeah, so wasn't, and it got super hot.
Do you have this folder? You have a flash drive? Okay. Anybody have a flash drive that I could borrow?
You want the session
Oh wait,
thing on
you
it?
want to? Wait, you don't. Okay, I don't want you to lose anything.
Yeah, but
Yeah. What I want to do is, do you have enough space on this?
It's
4 gig? 4 gig empty?
3 gig. No, 1 gig.
1 gig empty. That's a little close.
1.67.
No,
You want another one?
Okay, the folder is 1.67 gigs, so we need at least.
Two.
Let's go for 2. Okay, whoever wants, just toss it up. I'll catch it. Okay. Nice, nice. All right, so whoever has a slow connection, well, the folders are here.
We're going to just put it on yours.
Where'd you save it to? Yep, thank you, sir. Copy. where's your work?
That was lucky, you know, he barely got it.
Oh no, that's good. Here. Okay. All right. So we're gonna pass around Muhammad's wand. I'm sorry. Sorry. Wand.
You're about
Okay.
7 inches off.
Yeah. For some reason, in my head, both of you were Muhammad for some reason. I'm sorry, wand. I won't mess it up again. Okay. So yeah, we're gonna pass around Juan's flash drive so everyone has the files. And by that time, I think you should be able to have a function ready. It's easy. What are the outputs? Guys, I told you the input. File name. Now, by the way, it's also possible that you make a function out of this, and we try to run the for loop on all the files, that you might get some errors because there's a mismatch between files. And then we'll have to go back to our code and add some additional lines to cover that. So this is stuff you unveil as you dig into the data. Yeah, let's pass it around.
It's 37% on.
Does anybody else use it?
All HDF This code does everything we need to do for one file at a time. Make it a function. And then once you have the function, we'll run the function in a for loop. Okay, so what's the input? File name. And let's see if I can. Okay, yeah. And what's my output?
The AODX
Final. My AOD 550 final and the Latin long.
It doesn't.
Ah,
That has to be 550.
that's what I'm asking for. Because when we compare it to let's just do 550. I mean why change it? That's what it's set up to do. You don't need to, right now, you don't even need to change the code. You might just need to change a couple things. You just need to set the output names, latitude, longitude, whatever you name them, don't change it to my name. And the AOD, the final versions that have been filtered and everything. You're writing this as a function, those outputs should be up in the function line where you put outputs. I think we went over it many times, so you should know.
So it references back to the script. Because remember when we did the function for our x by x, we essentially created a new function. Like we didn't reference the old script.
No, I copied I used Nicole's script, copied it, just modified it, and then added function up at the top, the outputs, the inputs, and an end.
Yeah, but you weren't referencing the script. It doesn't reference.
No, it doesn't reference the script.
So this one neither.
It's like the script is becoming a function because that's the body of the function. The script is inside the function. It's the
Then
body.
wouldn't you have to take in all of those things that you did, like long, double, long, and all?
Okay, let's think about it step by step. Step one, if this was a function, what would it need? What's going to change? The file name. So that should be an input. Now assuming I have some arbitrary HDF file name given to the function, what's the first line going to do?
Read it.
It's going to read that arbitrary file name. So it doesn't matter because I've settled that issue by using this variable name for file.
It's still doing the longitude and latitude.
Yeah, every file is going to have that same, that's what we want.
Yeah.
It's not going to change. For these files, I mean, if you switch over to a totally different data product, they might have different names, right? And then you have to change accordingly. But in our case, that's what it's going to be. So it's going to pull this out for every different file, one at a time.
Wait.
Sometimes it's not learning. Sometimes it's about learning name.
What?
Sometimes it's about learning name.
Launch your name. Oh, long name.
Yeah. So it's not learning. So we
No. Long name is the long name of the data set. It doesn't connect to the long. Oh, someone's warm.
By mistake.
Alright. Okay.
Oh, you still having it?
Okay, so now, does everybody have the data files?
Yeah.
Who doesn't?
Almost done.
Almost done?
I just started downloading stuff from there.
From the flash drive?
Oh, I think it's flash drive.
Okay. Yeah. What about Sharif?
They said it loud.
Where's, oh, there you are. You have the files? Yes. Good. Yes. Okay. Okay, let's just do this right now. I haven't done it yet. Let's see if we can do it. Who can do it faster? Alright, I already saved this as a new file, so I'm going to delete that. Function.
When you settle on
The
that.
obvious stuff, right? I know I just at least need to write a function at the top. Function, I want my outputs. What are my outputs going to be? What do I name them? Lat, lawn, AOD 550, fine. Lat, lawn, AOD 550, final. Don't copy my names if you have different names. Okay, now modus file. I named the name of the file is modus. And again, don't copy my name if you have a different name. And the input is just F name. Done. Right? See how easy that is? I mean, now we'll test it. There might be mistakes, things might go wrong, but I can at least start with this. Okay? Now I save it. Now let's see if it works when I call it from a new script. I'll open a new script. I'll call this function. Modus files reader. Let's see, do I still have that file name saved? Let's see. F name. Yeah, it's still there. Okay. So, let me just test and see if it works. If I do that, it should only give me the first output. Oh, something's wrong. Undefined function and variable long. Alright, let's go.
Remember you said the name is different for every.
Okay, so let's troubleshoot. Okay, because I never read that. Is that what you were telling me before?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, thank you. Okay, let me just test this. See? See how easily you can mess up? I was missing a G. Shame on me. It's okay. Alright. Now let me save that. Now let me run that. And it works. What is my only output? Because I didn't specify any output. Wait, your output. Clear all. Let me go to my file name. There. Again, I started a new script just to test my function. I'm going to run that, and I only get one output, and that is the first output, lat. So I need to specify the outputs I want. If I want to go beyond, I'm going to call it lat mat for matrix. Lat mat, lawn mat. And then AOD 550 mat.
Equal.
All right.
You're missing the G. You know,
She said.
Leo, I did third. Then.
But this is a name I just made up,
Oh,
right?
okay.
That's what he gave me.
Oh.
Yeah, there it is. Oh,
Anyway, you guys keep going. Don't wait for me to fix my problem.
Got it.
Come on, think fast.
One was like,
You see where I messed up?
I told you you were missing the G.
I thought you said E. I'm like, what do you mean?
No, G.
Oh. See, good. So look, see, I messed that up because I put long in the code, but then in my output I put long without the G. Just because of that, I messed up. But it worked when I only didn't specify any outputs. So you see how you could miss an error if you don't try the full functionality. Okay. Look at the entire thing. And now let's try that. Okay. Now my only variables should be those. Good. Okay. So how many people got their function working? What? Sorry, why are people confused? What happened?
my function definition is not permitted.
Wait, where's your? Yeah, this should be gone. Yeah. Because you're not running the script, you're just saving this so that when you call the function in another script, then it should work. Let's try to save it. Wait, is this what you want? Function. Save it. And now start a new script. Just call it function. Modus, file, whatever you need. Or is it file or file? Yeah, file right there. And then fname is still in your workspace, so it'll work. Run it. Define function variable modus. Oh, Raider. And it only gives you one output because that's the default. 2. Get all the outputs you have from square brackets. The corresponding names, and they don't have to be different names in case. It could just be lat mat, on mat, AOD 550 mat, whatever you want, as long as they're in the same position. So try that. See if it works. Well, whatever name you want, they can be the same, or it could be, as long as they correspond to latitude, longitude, and AOD 550. Right? So whatever you want to call it.
Just put AOD whatever.
Yeah, you just put AOD, whatever you want. So you got your AOD, which is on there, so we expect for this file. Black. Yeah, that works. All right. So everybody has that function working. Okay. You have your function working? Does it work? Modus files reader. SCM problems. Go back to the function. Did you save it? Remember I said to not to get rid of your save as a new file and start your function there? So you had your script, right? And I asked you to save that file and then start and save as a new file and then save the function there. I don't think you did that because I see the name of your file is HDF data read, but that was the name of the script. Right? We want, for a function, we created, like, for example, sum. Matlab is a built-in function. Using max to get the maximum is a built-in function. Here, you're making your own function. And instead of it being called sum, max, or anything like that, it's called this, whatever you name it. Now, the name of the file you save it has to be the same. And it is not. Therefore, Matlab will not identify it. Call it. So save it as change the name to match that name. Or you could just change the name of the function to match the file name, whatever you want. Yeah.
Make sure you're out of
This is the same thing. Take that.
Okay. There should be nothing. Take that. Take away the semicolon.
I'm showing you the process.
It's not going to output anything. You're just defining a function. Okay. Now save it. When you save it, it should be named the same name as the function. Remember, for a function, you don't run it the same as like a script. You call it another script. You just type it out and you put what's in it and see how it runs. Start the script. No. Just to test it, you can still have your file name, you can still have it, so that's good. Put in whatever you name that function, you will see.
Smartest person.
And then fill the input.
You got competition.
What?
Like I said, he's the smartest person in the class, and I was like, well, he has competition. So it's between, I'm not gonna get between this. That's between y'all two.
What do you got for the results?
Oh, I put it
But, I mean, did you get it?
Oh, behavior parameter, they say so, right? So in those cases, oh, they, that's not the cell. That's not the cell. I noticed it's just gonna give you one output. You don't want it.
Yeah, I do get it.
It only gives you one output, so you didn't tell it, you didn't assign it to an output. So by default, what does it give? Good job.
I never watched. Oh, that's why I should never watch it.
Yeah. No, it only gets in the first output,
Yeah.
to get all the outputs, you don't write down some square brackets and put whatever names you want. They just have to correspond Yeah, for that one file. For that one file. Yeah. Fine function here.
Good, everything else.
Telling it, see how it has an underline there? You're saying the output is going to be AOD 550 final. But you don't have that name anywhere. Okay, guys, we're going to do this one more time because I still see that many people are having some issues with this. So let me, please pay attention. Because look, I said it so many times, I want you to pay attention so you actually get it. Okay? Look, and if you get it, just please stay quiet and let others get it. Alright? Okay, first of all, I made a mistake here. I have the input in my function as file name, and then I'm defining it to be some exact file. I don't want that. Get rid of that. Okay, here's how it works. This is different from what we've been doing, writing scripts and just running sections. Here, we're defining our own function. For example, Matlab has its own functions, and we use them all the time. Like max, minimum. Here, we're making our own function. And, where's my pen? We're naming the function. This is the name, the function name. Okay, function name. That's got to match the name that you save the file as, number one. Number two, you have to say what your input's going to be. It's going to be called fname, and it has to be somewhere in the code. Do I have fname anywhere in my code? Yes, I do. So what is this saying to MATLAB? It's saying I'm making this function, and what I want you to do with this input, I want you to pass it here and use it in the HDF read file. I'm not going to tell you the file name right now. Someone else will tell you at some point, but when it does go there as an input, it's going to be passed here, and here, and here. Okay? That's all MATLAB needs to do the rest. What else? What about the outputs? Now, even I made this mistake when I was just writing the function. What about the outputs?
The output, it should be AO. Oh.
Okay, look, now it doesn't matter what you name the outputs, as long as they show up in your code. Lat is one of my outputs. Let's see where it is in my code. Do I have it?
Yeah, right
What's
there.
the lat? Yeah, I have it right there, but it changes. What's the last version of lat? Okay, it's over here. I know it's in the code. So what's going to be my final output? Whatever the last thing I did to it was. The last line. Lat is there. I'm good. Okay. My second output, I want it to be the longitude matrix. It's got to be in my code. If it's nowhere to be found in my code, you're going to get an error. Which is why I was getting an error. I saved longitude as long, and then I asked MATLAB to give me the output without the G, just long. So now it's looking in the code like, where is long? What's this guy talking about? So it gives me an error. Okay, same thing for AOD 550 final. Like I said, don't copy my names. Don't copy me. Use the name that you called, whatever you named your AOD final result. I called it AOD 550 final. That's what mine is called. Whatever you called it, call it that. And that ties back to this guy. Same name. So whatever you name the outputs, they better be inside the code. Otherwise, you're going to get an error. And if you keep testing the function, you get errors, check for typos. Check that you named the outputs the actual name that's in the function. Check that your function name matches the name of the file you saved it as. And check that your inputs that you specified match exactly what's in the code. For example, here, here, and here, fname, that's where my input's gonna go. Okay? There it is. That's how you write a function. Now you want to test the function, you don't just start running line by line. You start a new script, click new. Will this actually work? Yeah, it does, okay. I start a new script, or I could go into the command window and call the function in the command window. Two ways. Start a new script, call the function, put in the input, specify the outputs, and run it. Or do that in the command window. Everyone get that? Do I need to repeat that? No? Okay. All right. So I hope you got it. By the way, I'm not like screaming at you guys. I'm just trying to project my voice so you stay awake. I see some of you falling asleep and stuff. Yeah. Which question? Okay.
So what happened is I placed all the names and but I didn't.
What's the question?
I placed the names and that's what mine.
Okay, you see right underline?
Yeah.
Hover over it. Function, keyword, use is invalid here. That's my plug later. Take that out. Okay, one more thing I didn't mention, guys. Remember I said writing a function is different than writing a script? The other difference is this. The other notice, before my top line, my first line, starts with defining the function. I say function. And then my outputs, my function name and the inputs. There's nothing before that. No clear all, no CLC, nothing. No, nothing before it. That, in a function file, you're just telling MATLAB, hey, I'm building this tool to be used for later. Okay? So there's no need to put clear all that stuff before the function. Okay. Do we have like a mop or something? It's like very, okay. Yeah, question, I'm sorry. Another thing, no need for a semicolon. Again, it's not a script, it's a function. Alright, I mean there's code in the function, but there's no need to suppress that line or put a semicolon because this line by itself doesn't output anything. It's just you're defining a function. You're telling MATLAB, I'm building something. And it'll keep it for later. That's what it's doing. Does it work when you do that? Okay, so you probably have maximum 5. What's that? Oh. Yeah. Because you're calling the function and you're just created in the function. That's not your work. It's like you're creating. It'll work, but hold on. That's the hints you get. These little undivided internally might be unset. Go down. Like I said, that has to be in your code. Missing a 5. Not save it. Just want to save it. But no, yeah, save it. Yeah. Now, in this new script, call that. Now try. Now try with all 3 outputs. Make sure you don't get an error. Yeah.
Just you will have to just take notes. I mean, it is. But then when you made the
Save.
She's like,
Notice.
Maybe this is like saying, like,
So that's something in the code. Yeah, whatever. Now, since we made a function, we could call the function and I could give it a different file name every time. We're going to go over that. I'm going to show you how to do it for a whole folder of different names. But let me just try to see what your error is.
I got uploaded into Matlab.
The first one.
oh, sorry. So what this means to be, right?
I'm here creating a function.
It says, browse any folder.
This is Latitude, Longitude, and then this is the function name. And then
Only this.
what's gonna be next?
And at the end, all the way at the end, you put in.
Now save that.
Yeah.
this is going over the same hall.
Yeah, it's only going
This first.
to be 8 or something.
So
Should be lighter one first.
at the end,
Okay, do I need to run this one first?
no, at the end of your code. Then
It's not supposed to be
you finish it.
Oh, then. That's all I need to do? I don't need to download the other one.
Why it's not?
Oh, the thing is, I think my priority to be like sex. Showing me things less. Showing me things less.
No.
Even if I want to.
That's it? Then I run it?
Wait, hold on. You have a field value and still values that I don't have.
Oh. It's alright.
Yeah.
This value, I just put them there so that I can specify.
Okay. And then add another.
Script.
And say F name with lowercase equals the name of the file that you want to write.
Yeah, you say,
Right, basically that.
that's zero different defined. So you're saying all these values inside long have set to add, but there is no long have. So it says nothing to add.
Because if I run this function,
Or
Yeah, just
another line, you have to add another line saying long f equals long, black f equals black. Why do that when you already have? Does that make sense?
What I need to run?
those
You do 3 outputs. Black, long. I can name whatever. So long, empty. Notice. script. I'm just trying to show you. At this point in the function itself. Okay. All right, are we good to go now?
What happens if in the first, without the function we get mass, and with this we don't get mass? It's wrong, right?
How many outputs did you call, ask to save? Did you even specify where you named 3 outputs
That's all you
equals?
did?
So you should be getting 3 different matrix results. Because if you're getting something that's not NaN, it could be because you're only showing the latitude or the what. Yeah, can I see? How did you call? Yeah, see, you didn't set it to 3. You didn't call.
So this is
Remember?
part of the function.
Remember everyone, after you saved your function and you know it's working or whatever, and you try to test it now, if you just type in the function name and put in the input, it's only going to give you the first output. But if you tell MATLAB, hey, I made this function already, but I want you to give me all these outputs, for example, like this. Let me new window. So now if I call my function, modus, files reader, and I put in whatever the file name is, it's only going to give me the first output, which is maybe latitude for mine. But if I want to see all the outputs, I have to tell MATLAB, set that equal to these outputs. Lat, law, and AOD. Or whatever the name, whatever names you want. And then it'll give me all 3 outputs it was designed to do. Okay, does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Let me get my command window back. Okay, so now I think we should get started. Let's get started on how we would attack a whole folder with 600 files. Alright, if you're falling asleep, clap your hands, wake yourself up. Alright? Because this is the another important part. So now we're going to start a new script. Let's have our function in that script. We're not defining a new function, we're just using it now. Okay? Let's put a clear all at the top. And now let's think about this. Let's say I just want to test this on one file in that folder that I gave you.
When you say call the function, can we just say modus file readers, or we have to say that whole line?
If you want all the outputs,
Yeah. If you want to call the function, you just say the name of the function. It's like, how do you take the sum of something? You say sum and you put in the input. But sum has more than one output if you desire. And to get more than one output, you have to tell MATLAB, I don't want just one output, I want you to save all the potential outputs, or some of them, right? So in our case, we can get 3 matrices out as output. Okay, so check it out. You know, let me try to, I don't want to cause any issues with you guys. Let's move the function the function file you created. Let's just move it into the folder with all those new HDF files. Okay, let's do that. You don't have to do that, but I don't want any errors to happen. So
We don't want to call it a different time.
yeah, I mean, we could ask MATLAB to change directories, but just to make things simple, let's do this. Do it like this. Alright. Gonna download. I'm just gonna move it. So my function file I call modus files reader. I'm gonna copy it. I'm going to put it in the session 8 folder in the modus _CCNY folder, this one. Everyone see that one? Sharif, you see that one? Okay, I'm copying my function in here. And also in here, well, before I do that, now I'm going to go back to Matlab, and I'm going to tell Matlab, hey, I want to work in that folder where all the data are. Inside modus underscore CCNY, I'm going to select that folder. Now I'm in the folder with all the data.
What button did you click to pick that folder? Or if we're in that folder, it's okay, right?
Are you in the folder with the 600 data files? Then you're good. Take your function file. You save the functions? What is it now? Okay. And now that we're in this folder, start a new script that will be saved in this folder as well. This is just to avoid changing directories and all that stuff, okay?
So we're using session name exclusively, nothing else.
We're using the folder called modus CCNY inside session name.
But so we're not, all the other functions we create, we make sure we're not using those things.
No, the function that we just created for reading a modus HDF file, take it and move it in this folder. Okay, the reason I'm saying this is because
It needs both to run.
MATLAB needs to know where the files are, it needs to know where the function is, where the, and there's going to be potential for error if you guys do it a different way. I just want to skip that. Yes?
I tried using like number element for when I put in the parameter modus underscore CCNY, it's giving me like 10 elements. Should it be all 600 files?
What did you did? Okay, so the question is, you tried the numL function, which gives you the number of elements of whatever matrix you input. What was your input?
Modus underscore CCNY.
His input was modus underscore CCNY, the actual string.
Yeah.
And what was the result?
Oh, it could be 10.
Did you
It gave you a 1 by 10, or no, 10 elements?
10.
That's because the way MATLAB counts a string is,
Literally,
Make out the letter.
CCNY. You need apostrophe.
so if you gave MATLAB this name,
It'll count the characters. Okay.
modus, yeah. Okay, this is one row to MATLAB, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 columns. Every character is like a column.
You can't take the
Okay? Alright, so let's get to it. So in your command windows, try this command, dir. What do you see? You see nothing? You see,
Using everything.
Right here?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
a lot of files, right? Now, the first thing we want to do is we want to make a list of all our file names. So, let me show you a nice trick to do this. Let's say you had a bunch of other files in here. You don't want MATLAB to read every file. And hold on, let me get everyone up to speed before I do this. Okay, what's up?
Because I couldn't download that.
Okay, let me get it for you.
I thought
It's inside.
it's right here. It's right there.
I already put it on the side.
Zip that. I didn't need to. Because it was there, it's just session A folder was already unzipped twice. Okay. But you see now, do you save all your codes? Okay.
Except, yeah, except the last one.
Where's the function?
All the way in the bottom.
Yeah, or
This is your script.
Yeah.
That's your function? Or is it modus file reader?
Oh, it's in
Oh, this, okay.
so now
Save as. I want to save it in this one.
This is the right.
Download to my folder. Guys, do you see how important it is to keep track of the folders you're working with?
yeah.
Most of your problems that I'm seeing is like because you can't find where you are. you have to keep track of where you put stuff in MATLAB. Okay, my folder. Okay. Modus file name. Okay. And that's, they're both, okay. Okay, and now, hold on. I don't want to take that away now. Okay. So, okay. Just copy the whole thing. Keep it. Now save as. Give it like a modus reader final or something, or a main. Okay, what's your problem? How'd you do that?
I uploaded the file,
Oh, okay.
and then I have the function here. No, this is a mistake. This one actually, I'm gonna delete this one.
How many times did you hit on it? Okay, did you save your scripts? You did. Everything. Okay, let's just kill it. Okay, while I'm getting everyone on board, for those of you who are there and waiting for me, see if you can figure out how to only make a file list of all the HDF files in the folder. It has to do with the directory, the dir command, but only if you follow what I told you, you should also have your script and function in there. So that means if you take the whole list, you're going to also include the .m files, which you don't want. We're only making the list of the file names, the HDF files.
The file that you downloaded.
Okay.
You have it.
Okay, where's your... Downloads? Okay. Alright guys, I'm just gonna do it. Here we go, alright? I want to make a file name list. I'll just say file list. Something should go in here.
You know where it says? Go right there.
Now I'm going to use, in this context, it's called a wild key. Yeah, you got it. .hdf. What does that tell MATLAB? It says, hey, in this case I'm saying whatever it says, I don't care what it says, take everything, as long as it ends with the .hdf.
And the .m file. Because our modus function is in there. Or do we only want the HDF files?
I only want, on the file list, we're making the whole list of all the modus data files that I want to run the for loop on.
Okay.
Yeah?
What's the asterisk called again?
Wild key.
Wild?
Wild key. It's like a wild card, right? If you ever play cards, the wild card, it could be any card, right? You should put that as a comment to remind yourself. Star, in this case. Yeah, it's basically says take all the characters. So basically all these letters here, numbers, they always change. Well, some of the stuff stays the same, right? Like mod 04, level 2, but the dates and the times are changing. So we don't want to manually do that. Okay, so now here's what my file list should look like.
See it?
It's a structure. It's a different type. So we mostly worked with arrays. I mentioned cells. Now how do I access what's in the structure array? I'll tell you. It turned this whole list of HDF files to a structure, and it tells you here are the fields. Name, date, byte. We want the name. We want the file names. So what do I say? How do I access one of these fields? Think of them as like subdirectories. You have a file cabinet in your house, and you have a big folder, and then inside that big folder is a smaller folder, right? Or just like the folders on your computer. So if I want to access name, all I do is this. I use the name I chose here. In my case, I said file list dot name. Now what does that give me? Oh, file name. No, file list dot name. You see that? It gives me all the file names, but as separate answers. So there are a couple ways we can do this. Here's the plan, guys. The plan is this. We make a list of files. 1. 2, we get the total number of files. Right? 3, we make a for loop that starts at the first file and will step through all the way to the last file. Okay? Now there are a couple different ways I can deal with these file names. For now, I'm going to do the old way I used to do it. Okay?
Can you like just scroll like the first what you write in the command to get those values? Was that file name?
Like I was explaining about the structure.
File list
Dot name.
Yeah, but do you know why?
Yeah, because that's what it says in the when you did the file list equals just the dot name date.
It's a structure, and if I want to access, it says a 608 by 1 structure array with fields.
Yeah.
What are the fields? These are the fields, and all I have to do is take the variable name I set, put a dot, and then one of these fields.
And then just
I want the name field, not that. I want to know the name. And just to verify that that's where the names are stored, you can say file list dot name to access that field. Okay? So I said file list dot name, and I get all the files, but you know they're not all together in one list. What if I tried this? File list parentheses 1 dot name. Okay, that gives me the first file in the list. If I look at my folder, I can see it's the same file. Let me clear it so you can see. First file in the list, I call it like that. Okay, let's see the second file in the list. Does it match the second file in the list? 222, yeah. Okay. So now, you could imagine if I make a for loop, for k goes from 1 to whatever the last number file is. Let's say that k, the step that I'm taking, k, for k equals 1 through 608 or whatever. Where do I put the k in this context?
there.
Yeah. It's as the index, right?
Yes.
So let's do that. So here's my function. Okay? I'm going to say
File.
for k equals 1 through, let's say, the length of file list. What does length do for me? What does that function do?
tells you
How many?
It tells you the longest dimension. So if you have a 100 by 100 by 200 matrix, it'll give you 200. Yeah.
Whatever the length is. 608.
You could use.
You got 610. Did you use the wild key, or did you just set file list equal to directory? Or did you add 2 HDF files to the folder? If you have 610, it means you're counting a couple files that aren't HDF files. Who said that actually? You. Okay. 610. All right, you ready? So this is basically going to go from k equals 1 all the way to 608. And that corresponds to the number of files I have. Now we have a function, so it's going to make it cleaner for us. We don't have to rewrite the code we did before. It's all in the function. So the only thing I'm changing is the file name every step of the way. So I'll say fname equals what do you think it equals?
Okay.
It's file X1.
Oh, file list K.
K dot name.
Dot name.
Okay, and now if I just want to test it for k equals 1, let's try it. Actually, let me just test the for loop on that. What's going to happen? It spans through all the files. Okay, let's say I want to save that. I don't want to do this, I'm just showing you. Boom. Scans through all the files. Okay? Scans through the whole list. Now, just take this away if you added that. Don't do that. So file name is going to change every step of the way because of this. Put a semicolon so it doesn't show. Now, what about my outputs? How do I want to save them? If I don't index my outputs, then they're going to be overwritten every time I go to the next file. Okay, I'll tell you how I want it to be saved. So, our results should be, what are the dimensions of these results?
Latitude, longitude, and
Well, what are the dimensions? Are they two-dimensional? Are they one-dimensional? Are they three-dimensional? Two-dimensional. It's just rows by columns. So, it's like 203 by 135. So I want the layer, we're going to use the layer as the, to correspond to the file number. So it's like all the rows and all the columns, comma 1, is going to correspond to the output for the first file. All the rows, all the columns, and comma layer 2 is going to be for the second file in the list. So just like the RGB image, we had 3 layers, one for red, one for green, one for blue. Here, we're going to have 608 layers, 1 for each file in the folder.
So it's lat.
Does that make sense?
So
Yeah.
So it's latitude, comma longitude, comma K.
No.
I mean, or like 608.
You have to index. So imagine we run through this. K equals 1. The file name should be the first file name of the list. Next step, it'll take that file name and that stage of the list, put it in our function. Our function will give us the final latitude, longitude, and AOD.
You want that in the first layer.
Hold on. Now, we go to K equals 2. file list of 2, it gives me the second file name, puts it in. Now, it saves that result. Our first results get erased. And when this finishes, we're going to only have 3 results, and it's going to be for the last file in the folder. Now think about it, we've gone over this with many different examples, with an iPhone image, with little, simpler examples. How do we save every result in our for loop?
Count.
Well, no.
Hold on.
I mean, count was when we had an interval that wasn't 1, remember? Forget about it, it's along those lines. You have to index it, you have to have a subscript.
Say like the S equals.
Okay,
So correct, for the last data correct.
okay, parentheses. And that,
Okay.
so think about it.
Comment.
K.
Oh, K.
It's K.
Yeah, it's K.
Okay, is it K?
Yeah.
Now, so if I put that for all of them, because I want to do that for all of them, right? I'm not saying it's right, I just want to go through it with you guys and see what's going to happen. What's going to happen?
For the first name,
Okay, K equals 1.
1, 1, 1.
I get the first file name. The first file name goes in the function. My output is going to be latmat of position 1.
It's going to save in the first.
It's going to be 1 value.
Yeah.
K plus 1, K plus 2.
Oh, it's going to save it all in one.
But let's see what happens. I'll do it
It's
for.
just a number.
I'm going to get rid of the for loop for now
Oh, no.
to test this. Okay. Let's just see what happens. K equals 1. And let's see what the output is. Oh. Okay, what do I get? I get error. Could not open file. Oh. Okay, hold on a second. Think about why it might not be correct while I make some adjustment here.
Come on, we can start this one. Take. Clear. What do you do?
Oh, no, sorry. 775,000 euros. Sorry, euros. About $1 billion.
Okay, so
They bought us that.
guys, unless you figured it out, should be talking about this stuff. Because I could leave this as a project for you and let you figure this out, which you don't have much time to do that. You have till Friday. Or I can show you how, and then you just apply it. So, thank you. Check it out. There, that's what's going to happen. I get an error message if I do that. An assignment. In an assignment, A of I equals B, the number of elements in B and I must be the same. Yeah. So basically, you're just saying This is specifying k equals 1, so just one value when it's a 203 by 135.
If you did K parentheses colon.
Okay, think about this. In the first run, which rows do I want from latitude? At the start of the for loop, which rows do I want? Don't be afraid, say it out loud.
First row.
What is the latitude matrix?
Oh, the columns.
608 by 1.
Oh, 608, but it's
No, forget about the number of files. Think about one file at a time. For one file, which rows do I want for the AOD matrix? Tell me. No, which rows? All of them. Yes. So, how do I write all the rows?
double dots.
Okay. Which columns do I want?
All of them.
Yeah, I'm basically saying I want the whole tile, the whole box. Remember I said it corresponds to a spatial area? I want all the rows, I want all the columns, and what did I say the layers will be for us?
Okay.
It'll be the file number. So for the first file in our folder, the results from that will be in the first layer.
Brilliant.
And the same applies for all three of them, right?
Yep.
Okay. Now I'm just going to remind you one other thing. I told you that there might be some discrepancies. There's 608 files in there. So some files might be slightly different than others. Like the inside, the contents, like the dimensions. So you might get an error when you run this. You probably will. So this is how we're going to save the results for everything. But you're probably going to get an error. I'm going to leave that for you to try to get past. What does it take? You have to read the error messages and figure out a way around it. Okay? So I'm going to activate my for loop. All right. And there, try it. Try it on your own. And feel free to work together to figure this one out.
To run the whole for loop? Or just this?
Yeah. You can test it for one file, and if it works, yeah, try with just k equals 1. See if you get 3 results. See if that works. If it works, it should work for the second.
You do it for all.
File this time. Okay, this is why I wanted everyone to be in the folder. Okay, so right here, if I put dir, it tells me there are no HDF because I'm not in the folder. That's why I was saying everyone should go put everything inside there. Yeah. So, well, that's okay. So, one way
What did you want to
is to
get
change
that?
the directory.
What did you get? K.
Now, call your function. Yeah, it's your function. Now, let's see if
Because when you run this, you get an error.
I run a file. I just realized it. When you run the file, you get equals to, well, at least I got it.
that's the thing, I'm not sure. But it didn't give Does it work for k equals 1? Oh, the same thing. You're not in the folder, you're outside. Double click. Remember I said make sure you save your script to that folder with all the data files? and there's a function in there.
I've raised that it's not good.
Yeah. I thought I put it in, but I put it in. So it's like that. From your documents.
Even though it's.
So let's just see.
That's right.
Take a look at that. Take this away. Just favor one and see. Yeah. Like just don't give any. Just do page one. Get rid of those. So.
Assignment dimensions.
We're trying to fix something here.
Oh.
We're not trying to
It's a third file. Yeah.
I never knew it because it didn't make sense, you know. You get back your still money. It's not good. You don't get it. Same money you put from there. It's just for people that are spend on something so they can spend it like that. So $8 and they get $1,000 and they can use it for something. They get to split it out on the side.
Like I said, you will get an error.
Yeah.
So you might have to modify the function to fit the purpose.
No, I didn't. But yeah.
Is this your
My first? No.
You mean when you run that line? Yes, run that.
How you good, but you just like subscribe.
So it's not an actual output, it's just that it wasn't suppressed itself, it's just not saved. It shouldn't have broken down.
I'm taking calculus. Difficult or complicated?
You know what it could be? It could be that.
What? Matlab is equivalent. You know your body is not so good. It's not after 3.
Well, because you suppress the outputs. After the second.
No, but now I think it ruins it. I mean, for some.
I didn't know.
To
the X search. Right. No, for sure. Sellers was an X because it was I know you got to work something.
I just discovered that I was not there.
Any lessons in college?
You might have to be creative, go back to the function and say, all right, let me see how I can rearrange this. What if I put the for loop inside the function?
What if we didn't use like?
So that's not going to really make it better or worse.
What did you say? You said what?
What if you go back to your function, and again, keep your old function, save a new one, give it a slightly different name, call like version 2. Try a variation. Try putting the for loop inside the function.
So that's what makes it. Right. So they have to be like they're like they're not functioning by any means.
But now, if you do that, if you make a revised version of your function, your input could change, right? You can say, instead of giving it file name as an input, I'll give it file list as an input. I mean, you don't have to do that, but.
If we just very direct code,
Yeah. So I'll tell you right now, guys, part of the problem is that the function that we designed, right, it gives you this two-dimensional output. And we're trying to force Matlab to make those outputs three-dimensional over here. So, what's another one? No, don't squeeze it. You'll hurt it.
Double. Double?
Hold on.
He said he'll hurt it.
What's another way we can do this?
Could you expand this?
What if we just... What if we take the two-dimensional results one file at a time? Okay, so k equals 1. The file name will be the first file. Our function will get the outputs for that file. And then, separately, after the function did that, we'll say like lat, I don't know, f for final. Lat f, no. All the rows and all the columns k equal the two-dimensional result for that run. Let's say same thing for long. Equals long that. Let's see if this works. So it's kind of like this, guys. It's kind of like at every step in my loop, I'm getting the temporary results, saving them in my final big three-dimensional matrices, and then it's refreshing and getting my new set of temporary results, storing them to my final. See? Still, we'll probably get an error though. But we're one step ahead, maybe. Alright, so somewhere in the loop, here's what you know. You know there's an assignment dimension mismatch. Right? We don't know when. Did it happen in the first file? here's what we could do. We could see where it made it to in the loop. What file number did it get up to? So my file number is attributed to K. So let me just type in my command window K. It got up to the third file. Something went wrong in the third file. So for the first file, we were good. Second file, all gravy. Third file, messed up. And the hint is that there's a dimension mismatch. Whenever you see this error, and you'll get this error many a time, it's because something's different about your matrix dimensions. So what I would say you should do is look at the third file and see what the dimensions are. Look at the first file, see what the dimensions are. Look at the second file, see what the dimensions are. Then look at the third file.
Yeah, when I said K, I would. When I said K,
You're not in the folder. You're outside of it.
I think.
It's just, you're looking at the folder. You didn't. It's like when you go back to right? It's like you were here. But you're not in it. Your current direction, so you're outside of it. It fools people all the time. So now you're in the folder. And now let's see if your file list pops up.
These are just makeup.
Yeah, it does. You just weren't in the folder. That's why in the beginning I took